Hi everyone, today I'm going to show you something called a sheet mulch technique, which is really a bit of a long overdue video because this forms the basis of all the gardening that I do, and it's a really simple technique that you can use to create garden beds without digging the soil. And the reason that you might want to do that, apart from the backache involved with digging the soil, is that the soil is a living ecosystem. When you dig it, you turn that ecosystem upside down. And it takes a long time for that to re-invert itself. The soil is full of life. It's full of worms, which you can often see when you dig it, but it's also full of microorganisms that you can't see. A teaspoon of healthy soil contains more living organisms than all the human beings on the planet. So although we can't always see it, it's really, really rich in life. And each of those organisms has layers in the soil where they're happy living, and that's their ecosystem. And so when we turn it over, we upset it. And that means that those organisms can't do their job. And part of what they do is making nutrients in the soil available to the plants that we want to grow. The other thing with digging soil is that over time you will destroy the structure of the soil, and you'll lose the air and you'll lose nutrient holding capacity. So if you can avoid digging soil, you really want to, and this is a method that you can use to start a bed without digging. So I've got an area of land here that I want to make into a raised bed. Now this already has the wooden edges around it, but you don't need to have them there, and in fact it's probably easier to do it without them, but because these were so big and hefty, we needed to make the edges of the bed before I started the process. But you'll see it's got quite a lot growing in it, dandelion, buttercup, grasses, dead nettles, cleavers and so on, but it hasn't got any couch grass, bindweed, ground elder or horsetail. If it had those things in, I wouldn't use this approach, and I'll talk more at the end about situations where this isn't an appropriate technique. But where you've got these sort of weeds, or where you've just got grass, it's really easy to use this. Now you don't have to even cut the vegetation down, but I am going to cut this down because it just makes it a little bit easier to work in it, but you can just literally flatten it and get going. Or you can just use some shears or a lawnmower if it's a larger area to just literally cut that vegetation, everything that's on the surface, and just leave it there, and that will rot down with the other things that we're going to put on the soil. Now the next thing you want to do, particularly if you've got a heavy soil, and we're on clay here so it's very heavy, this is the most important stage, is you want to get some air into the soil. Otherwise you'll end up with a compact layer underneath all the layers of mulch that you're going to put on top. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to fork over this bed without turning the soil at all. So I'm just literally going to put the fork in as deep as it will go and lean back on it so that the soil is lifted up. Okay, and I'm going to do that over the entire bed, walking backwards as I go so I don't stand on the bits that I've aerated. Okay. Okay, so I've forked over the whole bed and only pulled out two things. I just want to show you. One was quite a large stone. Generally, if stones are smaller than that, then I just leave them in the soil and they don't tend to be a problem unless you want to grow carrots. But that was quite big, so I pulled that one out. I also pulled out the bulb of a Spanish bluebell. They're the ones with the bigger, fatter leaves. And they've just started to flower now. I'm trying to get them out of the garden because I'm trying to establish English bluebells, and these are much stronger genetically, so if the bees cross-pollinate the two, you tend to get something that goes towards the Spanish. So just for your information, they're not welcome. here in my garden. So I've then spread some grass cuttings from when I mowed the lawn the other day over the bed. Now this stage isn't necessary, but if you've got any green waste, could be just kitchen waste, potato peelings, or green waste from your garden, but very sort of sappy green waste, nothing sticky. You don't want sticks in there. You can put that onto the soil and it will just start to be food for the worms and so on. So what we're doing here in making this bed is we're building up layers or sheets of material, all of which are biodegradable, so they're all going to rot down and become part of the soil that you're creating here. So after this layer of green waste, which you may or may not put on the surface of your aerated bed, you then want something that's going to exclude the light from what's growing underneath, so the grass and so on. And the best thing to use is cardboard. So you want as large sheets of cardboard as you can get hold of, and make your job much easier with large sheets. And you want to completely cover everything that you want to kill off. So I've got a rather beleaguered Japanese wineberry here, which I'm going to mulch around because I want to keep that. But everything else I'm going to exclude the light from. So we just start putting it on. Did do a little preparation to make this a bit quicker. So I've cut a bit out here. You really want to tuck it right into the edges. In fact, if it goes up the edges a little bit, then all the better. This one goes down here. Now, where you're overlapping pieces of cardboard, you want a nice wide overlap. If you just put them touching each other or just one on top of the other, whatever's growing underneath is going to find its way up through that crack and into the light. So a nice wide overlap. That goes there. And over here, because this one doesn't quite meet the edge, you will put more cardboard on. So you can put more than one layer. I've done this with up to 4 layers of cardboard, but 4 isn't really necessary if you've just got grass and things underneath. So that one's going across there. Obviously anything holy, you don't want those holes, so something else over the top of it. And I'm going to get in as close as I can to this little plant that I want to leave. There we go. I'm going to find another bit just to put in there, and then this layer will be finished. So you can see I've completely covered the bed so that nothing green except the thing I want to save is showing here. Okay, so the bed's completely covered with cardboard now, so you can't see any green except the bit that we want to see. So the next layer we're going to put on is the fertility layer. So you want a layer of compost or manure, well rotted manure, to go on top of the cardboard. And if you're going to plant into this year, this is going to be your main growing medium. So you want something that's that feels good and reasonably like soil. So I've got compost dug out of my compost heap. I'm just going to tip it on there. And I'll spread that out. Now you want as thick a layer now as you can manage to get. So definitely if you're going to plant into it, you don't want a puny little centimetre or 2. You want at least 5 centimetres of good soil-like material on top of your cardboard. If you haven't got garden compost, you can use well-rotted manure, horse manure, best if it's bedded on straw or hemp and not bedded on wood chip, because that causes problems as it rots down. Or you can get large sacks delivered of green waste compost, which comes from the garden waste that people take to the tip. Now that's really good for filling large areas, but it's not very high in nutrients. So along with that, you would want to put something in that's going to feed the soil. So that would be manure, compost, or some kind of feed, pelleted feed. You can buy grow char and chicken manure and various things pelleted to go on top. So once I've spread this out, that is basically the bed done and ready. The final stage that I will add is just a thin layer on the top of some sort of dry material. So you can see on the bed next to it here, this has got a layer of straw on it, but you could equally use dry leaves, you could use bracken, dry bracken if that's available, or as you cut your lawns, grass, you can put the grass cuttings on top in a thin layer so that they dry out like hay rather than go all sort of mushy. So just a layer like that. It's not necessary, it's not vital, but it will just help keep the moisture in, and that will help speed up the process by which all of these layers rot down. The worms and the soil microorganisms come up and pull them down into the soil, and you gradually get it all integrated so that in a year's time you won't see any sign of this cardboard layer. So the sheet mulch bed is finished. I've just put a very thin layer of straw on the top. That's what I had. It's done, and it's basically now ready to be used. Now you can leave it for several months, and obviously by that time everything will have started rotting and the cardboard will be soft and it will be easy to plant into. But you can also plant into it immediately if you want to. Now I will make a video on this when I plant into this bed, but just for anybody who's already at the stage where they need to plant into a bed like this, what you want to do if you're going to plant into it is, well, first of all, look at your soil layer. Now if you've got something really dark, crumbly and soil-like like this is, you can actually just plant your seeds or your seedlings straight into that. So you want to go through to the cardboard layer, make a hole through that layer with something sharp like an old screwdriver or something, so that the roots of whatever you're planting can get through that layer. And then if you've got a thick enough layer of compost on the top, you can plant immediately into that. If you haven't, or if your compost is not very rich, or if it's very rich, if it's just pure manure and you think it might be too rich for your plants, you can take a big handful of either garden soil or compost from a bag, put that into a pocket over the hole and plant into that. As I said, I can show you all of this in a video, but that's not going to be for a few weeks. Just a couple of cautions about this kind of sheet mulch bed. There are two circumstances when I wouldn't use it. One, as I mentioned earlier, is where you've got lots of the perennial weeds which have got the sort of roots that run under the soil and send up lots and lots of new plants like bindweed and couch grass and ground elder. If you've got those, you're much better off covering the soil in some sort of membrane or plastic for a year before you take those roots out and then use this sort of technique. The other situation is where you've got very compacted soil underneath. So if it's been used as agricultural land and you've had heavy machinery on it or building machinery, if it's really compacted, then that sort of soil, it is worth turning over and digging it to open it out before you use this sort of layering technique on it. But in your average garden, working on grass and most garden weeds, this is a really good system for getting beds started.